Today I want to tell you a story about my friend Tammy De Treaux. We called her Tammy. Her full name was Tamara De Treaux, which she spelled Detreaux. Although there's every indication that her mother, Barbara De Treaux, spelled it Detro. Don't know which is true. Doesn't matter with Tammy. I'll tell you how we met, first of all. I was at a cruise on the San Francisco Bay that was meant to celebrate Evening Magazine. And so they had everybody that had been on that program invited to join in. And I went with my friend Dave Copay, who was a very famous football player at the time. And I was waiting in line for a drink, I believe, when I backed up and suddenly heard this voice say, "Watch it, Buster." So I turned around and there was this woman in front of me, below me, a very tiny woman. She was like, can I indicate that on here? Will you see it?
Yeah, barely.
She was 32 inches tall, and at the time she was listed as the shortest woman in the world. We became friends almost immediately. She had this sassy, outgoing personality, and she didn't care how uncomfortable you were about her size. She just lived her life, and I felt right at home at that. It was like being queer. It was helped because, I don't know, she in her own way, she was queer herself. She had something to distinguish her from the rest of the world that she had to live with. So we became friends. I invited her by my house on Telegraph Hill. She met my friends, all of whom were charmed by her. And I learned that she lived in the East Bay with her mother. Her mother was loving but controlling. Her mother had spent her entire life dealing with this little person. So she thought she knew what was best for her. Maybe she did. So our friendship developed from there. I visited her once at a gay bar in the East Bay, which is really interesting because she knew everybody in the place and they knew her. She was a personality. She managed to make the enormous difference in her life, the big thing that made her stand out, she used to her advantage in a very good way. She told me she wanted to move to LA and seek her fortune there. And so she did. I introduced her to my friend Bud Cort, who was fresh off of playing Harold and Maude.
License, lady?
I don't have one. I don't believe in them.
How long you been driving, lady?
About 45 minutes, wouldn't you say, Harold? We were hoping to start sooner, but you see, it's rather hard to find a truck.
It's your truck?
Oh no, I just took it.
He asked Tammy to be part of a singing group that he had called the Bud Cort and the Medflies. And she was to be a medfly. They were singing at the Whiskey A Go-Go, I think it was, one night when a producer came into the place and caught sight of her and made an overture about whether she was available for things. She called me very excited to tell me that one of Steven Spielberg's producers wanted her to be part of a new movie he was doing. and that Steven, as she called him at that point, even, she says, Steven thinks it's going to be the next Wizard of Oz. So my mind immediately went to Munchkin Land and wondered if that's what she was being used for. I hope she was what she was being used for, but she couldn't talk about it. So it wasn't until months later that I found out that she had been in E.T., the extraterrestrial, as E.T. She actually wore the suit that E.T. wore and was in some crucial scenes. She did most of the movement scenes where E.T. needed feet. There were other people that took care of the other parts of the movement of E.T. But Tammy was in this big scene in the kitchen, I believe, and then one later, as E.T. climbs into the spaceship. I can actually make out Tammy's movement then, which was thrilling to me. The time came. She had dreams of becoming a legendary character, and she did it with that film, even though no one ever knew who she was or could see who she was. And that was frustrating to her, but she was doing what she could do. Spielberg told her that she couldn't talk about being in the role, about playing that role, about doing. I remember her saying to me, "I'm not a little person into rubber. I'm an actress." And but she abided by that for as long as she could, until she had to break free. I wrote about her in my novel, Maybe the Moon, which wasn't finished by the time Tammy died, sadly. But she knew that I was working on something to do with her. And I asked her if she'd come by my house in San Francisco and let me ask her embarrassing questions that I would need to know if I was writing about a little person. So she came by and was very open about everything. I remember saying, "Do you masturbate?" And she said, "Doesn't everybody?" She didn't have any kind of compunction to keep her mouth shut about anything. As a friend, Tammy was extremely loyal. She would call me on my shit all the time, speaking very frankly, because she could. But mostly she was just fun. I remember how much fun she was. When we went out to a gay bar or something, she was just the life of the party. And she was used to being the life of the party. I think she developed it as a skill, to deal with this incredible difference that she had. I wrote about her in Maybe the Moon in a way to show that, how difficult it was for someone in Hollywood to actually survive. She was so used to being made the butt of a joke. You've got a little person, what do you do with them? Oh, you put them in a barrel and roll them down the hill. And so she was looking for something that allowed her to be herself, allow her personality to come out. And since I knew her personality, I thought that was a great idea. Her dream was to have a role where she could use her own personality, where she could be seen, where she didn't have to be in a rubber suit. And that really never came true. She was in a movie called Ghoulies, where she played a human-esque person.
That precisely.
It's why you've called us, Master.
And we will.
Most faithfully.
Forsaking all others, you will obey me?
Unquestioningly.
We are yours.
I suppose she was destined to be disappointed, because she knew more than any of us knew that she had limited time. She died when she was 31 in 1990. And, some little people whose organs are compressed by everything that's weighing down on it have a shorter life expectancy. And she had the kind of dwarfism that made her think that she didn't have long to go. And so that added to her need to be famous. And I reflected all that in the novel, in Maybe the Moon. Of course, I didn't make her she wasn't the creator of E.T., she was the creator of somebody called Mr. Woods, who was a forest dwarf, kind of enchanted character. The great thing about Tammy was that I knew I had her carte blanche to tell a story that would fit her life, if not be her life, and be faithful to her humanity. That's what I wanted to do with Maybe the Moon, to show a real human being there who has to endure the mythology of little people and or the mythology that's inflicted on little people. My approach with Tammy and with the character, Cadence Roth, was to tell the truth as best I could and to give her full humanity without, moving into Munchkin land. And it paid off. I was really gratified to get invitations from the little people of America who felt that I was the first writer to capture the essence of what it is to be a little person. I went to one of their meetings. I was on the dance floor with them. I shouldn't be laughing at that, but what's funny is the tall, geeky American Southerner trying to dance with a little person. There were some other people there, brothers and relatives of the little people, so it made for quite a scene. I don't know if we have a picture of that or not, but I was honored. Let's just put it that way. I was very honored to be seen in that light and to be present among them. I'm always a little surprised when people come up to me and say that Maybe the Moon is their favorite novel of any of my novels, because I usually get it about the Tales series. But it makes me very happy because I think it's my favorite because of what it accomplishes. I don't like to speak for my own work, so you just have to read it if you haven't yet. I think it's a very powerful book, and at least people tell me that. And I'm glad I wrote it. I wish I'd finished it before Tammy died. I wish a lot of things about that, but mostly what I'm doing today is celebrating her and thanking her for everything she did for me, because she did, by being herself more vividly and than anybody I've ever known, gay or straight. She was herself, and it must have been a lonely journey sometimes. But so yeah, the novel is in celebration of that. Here's a typical story from Tammy. I wouldn't know this at all if she didn't tell me herself, but she was working at a club in LA and helping to close up the place. I don't know exactly what her duty was, but she was seeing a guy, a tall guy, who worked at the club. And as they were leaving, there was a cleaning woman there, an African-American woman, who saw what was happening between Tammy and him, and then pulled her aside and said, "Girl, you must be all pussy." And I love the fact that first of all, that Tammy heard that and then told me about it and was kind of proud of it, I guess. She was a person without shame. And that made her someone to study and love. The short version of this is that I loved her a great deal. We got to know each other better than I've ever gotten to know anyone, I think. And we joked about her being the shortest woman in the world, although that she lost that title. She said some fucking Romanian just took it away from me, and I don't think she even had legs. Tammy had legs. We joked about everything, and I treasured her friendship. And it feels weirdly privileged that I actually got to personally know E.T. And I'm not the only person. I mean, a number of friends of mine have knew Tammy over the years or talked about seeing her this and that club. But she's remembered by the people who loved her in person. So thank you for letting me celebrate Tammy, and thank you for listening.